So last but not least, our presentation today is the paper of Péter Tibor Nagy. Péter is a historian, sociologist, educational historian, and professor at the John Wesley Theological College. He is the head of Wesley Research Center for Sociology of Church and Religion in Budapest. He is founding member of Research Center for Sociology of Education and Youth at the University at the Eötvös University in Budapest, Faculty of Social Science. He has PhD courses and students at the Doctoral School of Education, also at the Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest, at the Faculty of Education and Psychology. He is the president of the section of Sociology of Education of Hungarian Association of Sociologists. He is member of the Subcommittee of History of Education of Hungarian Academy of Sciences, and the title of his presentation is The Guild and the Survivors. So, despite the late hour, we are looking forward to your presentation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's a good news. Now I would like to share a Word document because I hit PowerPoint. Do you see?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, in this paper, in this paper, I would like to speak first of all that there are two competing hypotheses about Hungarian Holocaust, or generally in the Holocaust. But the Hungarian, you will see that the Hungarian Holocaust will be especially a good example concerning the describing these two top competing hypotheses. That and these two hypotheses somehow in the relation of another debate that the Holocaust should be viewed as a historical or an extra-historical event. Is it interpretable from the tendencies of one or other country's Jews, non-Jews relation, or it's interpretable as a attempt coming from Germany, as we heard or about this debate in the previous lecture. The first hypothesis stress that the uniqueness of the Holocaust lies in the fact that the Holocaust machinery made no distinction in social categories. That's the real specialty, that they want to kill every Jews, and the surviving of the Holocaust is a real random. There is a random effect, so we couldn't say anything about it. The second hypothesis say that the uniqueness of the intention of Holocaust lies in the non-differentiating. The success rate of the mass murder exhibits a systematic, non-random pattern in a sociological sense. In this second hypothesis, so which say that the success of this original plan is somehow linked in the local society, try to find factors which influence the success rate in the different social groups. let's say, three types of survival factors. The first, the status within Jewish society. The second, a member of non-Jewish society in one concrete national society. And the third effect, the capitals of the individuals, capitals in the meaning of Pierre Bourdieu, in the ghetto. So are you a useful person in that very special situation in the ghetto? It helps you to survive it. This later narrative say that the places the Holocaust firmly within history, thus also making it a part of Hungarian history. It's very important. So it's not only a European history with a Hungarian chapter, but Hungarian history. And it is not a kind of natural disaster, not a natural catastrophe, but it's a kind of outcome of the actions and interests and moral and immoral decisions of real concrete people. If we want to decide these questions, we have to speak something in statistical meaning about the surviving. There are statistical limits of sources. Yes, there are censuses in 1941, and from where we got a kind of complete description about the Jewish society of Hungary. And there are a 1949 census, which gave, from different reasons, only a kind of regional description of the Jewish. But for methodological reason, it tells us, I mean, the comparing of these two census, nothing about the social specificities of the destruction wrought by the Holocaust. Five factors become absolutely mixed. There is a factor that there is an event history effect, practically as it perhaps known in this audience of this conference, that after the first phases of the deportation, which happened in the gendarmerie districts of countryside, the governor stopped the deportation. So that the social, so it's a socially systematic, non-random pattern of those Jews who were residing outside Budapest at the time of the 1941 census, but who were Budapest residents in 1944. So that's the reason that we can't use really the comparing of the statistical data of 41 and 49. The second, there is a systematic and non-random pattern according to which Jews originally from outside Budapest survived the Budapest ghetto, the death marches and concentration camps to return to their native cities or to remain in Budapest or to leave the country, I mean after 45. The third, the systematic non-random pattern according to which survivors switch occupations between 45 and 49, exploiting the opportunities that arose from the abolition of formal discrimination or from the emigration in 45 and 48 of non-Jewish government officials and state security personnel. And the last one, that's the systematic non-random pattern whereby at the time of the 49 census, some people choose to make use of enhanced opportunities for declaring no religious affiliation, which had not really been an option in 41. So how can we solve the problem the finding the survivors without the using of census. It is only possible if we are able to define the selected group of individuals prior to the Holocaust and then relocate these same individuals in the post-Holocaust settings in 45. The data bank is based on the 41 and 45 surveys of Budapest dwellings and their inhabitants in this lecture. Our ability or inability to locate a person in 45 will depend on additional factors other than Holocaust, natural death or outward migration from Budapest, and many Jewish men who served in the labor battalions were subsequently held as prisoners of war. They will evidently account for some of the people missing in 45. In this sample, we get a 5% sample from the dwelling in this collection, and in this story we find that almost 3,000 buildings in the Cebu where we found Jewish inhabitants in 1,000 houses. It shows that there is no real segregation of the Jews in Budapest. It's very important that we can prove that this sample which we get is a very good one, because the share of adherents to Judaism in our sample is 16%, and we compare it with the published census, it's 15.8%. So it's a very, very good sample which was successful. In contrast, the percentage of non-adherents to Judaism, but classed as Jews under Hungarian law, only 1.7% in our sample, whereas it was more than 3% in the census. What are the sociological factors of surviving? Oh, sorry, could you tell me how much minutes I have?
Sorry, yes.
How many minutes?
9.
9 minutes. Okay. So yeah. The first factor of the surviving religion, practically, which prove that there is some relation to the Christians. We are definitely can't say about the in general the surviving of the Christian Jews contrary to the Jewish Jews. Why? Because as we see before, there are a great hidden group, more than half of the Christian Jews, who was not realized in this sample or in these dwellings datas, and we can assume that the same people who was able to keep secret the Jewishness in the statistical surveys, the same people will be helped more intensively by their Christian friends and relatives. So it's not a really good source for this. But indirectly, we are able to prove that the Christian ties did improve the chances of survival. We found that 37% of Jews with spouses who were not classed as Jews survived, and 20% of Jews with Jewish spouses survived only. So we can say that more than or almost twice bigger chance for the Jews with Christian spouses, with Christian wife and husband, to survive the Holocaust, which practically means that that kind of help or that kind of possibility, which coming from a non-Jewish family, was a relevant factor. The second thing, the simple to say to education or the level of education. So if we can compare some groups of society, especially occupational groups, because in this dwelling there are no direct data about the level of education, only the occupation. And in this occupation, we can see that 24% of the skilled workers, Jews, survived, and only 15% of unskilled workers survived. So we can see that there are 1.5 times more skilled person survived than the unskilled worker. What could be the reason of this? What could be the reason of this better surviving? The skilled workers had stronger ties to middle class Christian society. The second, practically, they are more relation to that kind of persons who stepped into the Jewish business from with the help or with the ask of the Jewish entrepreneurs. And the second question, that's the political left wing, have a very moderate rescue capacity, and naturally it's concentrated for the skilled workers, because the skilled workers had better relations to the social democratic movement. The next factor, that if you are employed in the public sector, you have better chances than if you are employed by the private sector. 21% of the public sector intellectuals survived, contra the private sector intellectuals who were only 16% survived. It's a kind of underestimation, because the persons who were realized as public sector intellectuals in 41, the greatest part of them got in 41 a special addition to his salary, which helped to rent middle class type flats, apartments. So practically a greatest part of them was leave these flats, because in 44 they were naturally not public servants. And contrary this fact, the factor 1.4, so practically 1.5 times more chance to survive. It's practically mean that in the public sector there are better relation or more relation to the Christian society. The relatively leadership. So if you are in a boss position in the society, you have better chances. For example, more than 30% of upper public officials survived, the contrary to the 16% of the not upper, sorry, lower, lower public officials. It's more than twice more chances, and there are a smaller difference in the private sector, but the vector is the same. So the upper private officials have bigger chances. Okay. Sorry. Sorry. Oh, yes. Okay, the richness, if you see...
A lényeg ennek, amiről ez beszél, az, hogy...
sorry, somebody speaking Hungarian in the...
Sorry, yeah, bocsánat. Can I ask you to wait? Okay? So please mute your... Halkítsa le, kérem, a mikrofonját. Yes, please continue.
Okay, thanks. So the richness is the next factor. We can compare the great industrialists and wholesalers and the small industrialists and wholesalers see the same chance difference in the field of surviving. And at last, as there are practical usefulness in the ghetto, practically workers' chances were better comparing intellectuals. All of the previous numbers shows, and there's only one reason that the worker could help in a lot of things in the ghetto life, and in this help process he got money, help, food, medicine, anything else which make a better chances. But which is very interesting that there are better chances of surviving of medical doctor than lawyers. It's very interesting because originally I was told that the medical doctor is more useful people in the ghetto, but not because the lawyers had a special capital and the network to authorities, network to the police, and that helped the lawyers to survive. And there is a special phenomenon. Then the Anti-Semitic Association of Medical Doctors had much more members than any other anti-Semitic association. More than 1/3 of non-Jewish doctors of Budapest was controlled by that anti-Semitic associations. So practically the doctors has lower chance to ask their colleagues to help them than the lawyers or than anybody else. So practically all factors of surviving interpretable from the Jewish-Christian relation. So altogether we can say that the Holocaust was not an extra historical, rather it happened within history. In other words, we should view it as an event embedded in Hungarian social history. The complex reality of Holocaust was determined by a German occupation, as Jesensky professor said in 20 minutes before, but the chance of surviving, it depends of the nexus to Hungarian society. So the chance of the surviving, it's possible a real responsibility of the Hungarian society. And naturally, the shortage of surviving is the responsibility of Hungarian society too. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. So this is the time for questions and comments now. So please don't hesitate to ask.
So I have just a simple question.
Yes?
I have a simple question. Probably already replied to that question. in that case, excuse me. So my simple question is that how do you get, or how did you get any data on Christian Jews in statistics which were made after 1945, because speaking on the census which was implemented in 1949, religion was asked, but only religion was asked. And
yes, but
I am familiar with another source, the Counted Remnant, which was published by the Hungarian section of World Jewish Congress, to my best knowledge, but that included only Jewish Jews, not Christian Jews. So how do you have any kind of data?
Concretely in this research, it was very simply a solution, because in the there was a sample in 41, and the 41 there were concrete persons with concrete names.
I understand.
Concrete dwellings.
Thank you.
And the only question was that can I catch him in 45 or not? In 45, I haven't asked that are you Jewish or not. It was absolutely enough for me that 5 years later you were Christian Jew or Jewish Jew, and if you are in the same flat, you survived. If you are not in the same flat, something other happened.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely understand. So you have a sample from 1941.
Yes, and I find the same person in the sample in 45. Yeah. So practically, I linked the two samples.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else with questions and comments? In this late hour? Nobody? Okay, then thank you for your comments and questions, and thank you, Peter, for your excellent interpretation and discussion. And should any of you have more questions, please do not hesitate to contact either Péter Tibor Nagy or the other speakers privately. Now, at the end of the discussion today, nothing remains but to turn on my video, for example, and thank our speakers for their excellent papers, and for the visitors for joining in the panel of the International Conference Europe 1944-1945. This is an online discussion organized by the History of World War II subcommittee of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, the Fulton School of Liberal Arts, the Salisbury University, and the John Wesley Theological College. The conference is now ending for today, but it continues tomorrow at 9 a.m. with the Hungarian language panel led by Péter Virányi, who is also one of the organizers of this online meeting. So for those who can understand Hungarian, I can only recommend to join the panels tomorrow as well. And in the afternoon, there's another English language panel beginning at 3:30 p.m. tomorrow. And as the discussion is ending today, thank you for your attention and wish you a nice evening. Goodbye.